Body Wrappers, Angela Luzio is delighted to sponsor this episode of Conversations on Dance. Body Wrappers Angela Luzio is known for its fine, total stretch tights and Angela Luzio shoes. Tyler Peck, principal dancer with New York City Ballet, is its spokesperson and designer of Tyler Peck Designs for Premiere. Tyler's beautiful, original designs fit perfectly, move well with the body, won't ride up in the back, and are ideal for class, rehearsal, and performance. Body Wrappers makes additional apparel for all disciplines, and significant to dance teachers this time of year, Body Wrappers Performance Wear Remix for competition and recital, consisting of various components that can be mixed and matched to create a unique costume you won't see anywhere else, like the one featured in Body Wrappers' ad. You may view all the products at bodywrappers.com, or to purchase Body Wrappers Performance Wear Remix items, go to your favorite local dance retailer shop or online store. To view and buy the entire collection of Tyler Peck designs, go to dancewearcorner.com. I'm Rebecca King Ferraro.
And I'm Michael Breeden, and you're listening to Conversations on Dance. This week, we are joined by New York City Ballet resident choreographer Justin Peck in a live Meet the Artist event before the opening night of the Unbound Festival at the San Francisco Ballet. Stay tuned this week for more from the festival.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to opening night of Unbound and opening night of Unbound A. I am so pleased that our Meet the Artist talk tonight is going to feature the hosts of the Conversations on Dance podcast, Rebecca Ferraro and Michael Breeden, in conversation with choreographer Justin Peck. They're going to do a great job, and you're going to hear this all on a podcast in a couple short days. So check that out. Check out San Francisco Ballet's podcasts and enjoy this interview and the show tonight. Thanks for being here.
Hi. Hi, everyone. We're so happy to be here, and thank you to San Francisco Ballet for having us this evening. This is going to be a wonderful event this evening and for the next few weeks. So the energy in the building is just palpable. All of the dancers and choreographers that we've been talking to today are just so excited. So we're looking forward to it as well.
It's such an unprecedented endeavor for this company to be putting out 12 new works over the course of 17 days. So I'm sure that you are all just as every bit as excited as we are to see what is revealed throughout the course of these next few weeks. So, Justin, thank you so much for joining us. It's really...
Thanks for having me. Hi, guys.
Your work is on the program tonight. You're closing out, so you've got a few more hours to stress out.
Yeah, but I get to enjoy the other two pieces before,
right.
So that'll be nice. I haven't actually seen anything of the other two choreographers' work, so I'm excited to see what they've done as well.
So let's just start and talk a little bit about your beginnings as a choreographer. When did you first have an idea that you had an interest in choreography, and what were some of your initial experimentations in the art like?
Well, I guess I first became interested in choreography when I first moved to New York City as a student at the School of American Ballet. I went to the ballet quite often and saw the works primarily by George Balanchine and Jerome Robbins, and it was the first exposure to work that was purely about the interrelation between music and movement. And that was just something new that I had never seen before, and I realized that choreography could be about just that. And so that's where the first seed was planted, and then I joined New York City Ballet a few years later, and a couple years after that, I just felt this itch to explore this outlet, and while I was actually studying at Columbia University, I took a dance criticism course just as an elective, and my professor there, her name's Mindy Aloff, she, at the end of the semester, out of the blue, she told me that she felt like I would have had an interesting mind for choreography, and so I took it as a sign, and I made my first piece shortly after that, and just haven't stopped since.
So you began choreographing in 2009 at a fairly young age. Were you 20, 21?
I think I was 20.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right at the beginning
We'll
of
have
your
to
career.
fact check.
Okay. And shortly thereafter, you were commissioned for 2 major works with New York City Ballet. Did you find this time to be overwhelming or terrifying? I would. Or did you find it just like you wanted to live in the moment and enjoy it?
Well, there was a period between those two things where I spent a few years at the New York Choreographic Institute, which is an affiliate of New York City Ballet, and it's kind of like a laboratory where choreographers can go, and they're provided with studio space and talented dancers and time to just go through the process of making something. And so I did a few sessions there where I was able to make a few pieces and get some experience before showing any work publicly. So that was kind of like my training ground. So I built up a little bit of confidence and experience through that. And then after several sessions, I was commissioned to create something for New York City Ballet. And of course, I was really ecstatic to do that. But the way that these companies work, they plan their season so far in advance that I remember being offered this wonderful commission. And the director was like, okay, but you're gonna have to wait 2 years to do it. So it was this like long grace period, and I spent a lot of time thinking about what I wanted to create, and so in a way it was a very focused time for me.
So now your work is being done all over the globe, and you have your duties as resident choreographer at New York City Ballet, but you are in high demand elsewhere. So about how many ballets do you think you're working on at any given moment?
Well, each year I try to just only commit to one commission outside of New York City Ballet. So it fluctuates a little bit year to year. Sometimes it'll be 0, sometimes it'll be 2. But right now my primary focus is the output at New York City Ballet. So there I usually do between 2 and 3 ballets a year. They perform so frequently, and they have such a vast repertoire that the structure allows for more work to be created there. So it's a very kind of fast-paced and exciting environment.
Right. I was wondering, dance is such a unique, choreography is such a unique art form in that the material, that you're working with is humans. We're people that have to work under certain conditions at a certain time. A piece of paper isn't going to complain if you want to write on it at 4:30 a.m. Dancers definitely will. So do you find, in terms of inspiration, that it has to come to you from 10 to 5 during the day? Are there ever points where you're just like, God, I wish I could have done this last night at midnight when I was really getting going in my head?
I mean, I'm typically a morning person, so for me the challenging moments are when I have all day off and then I have to rehearse from 5 to 7 p.m. and it's like, and the dancers are tired at that point. And so you're right, it's a little bit out of my control, and it has to do with so many factors and so many people, and it's such a collaborative art form. So you have to kind of work with those conditions, and yeah, I guess that's part of the challenge of making dances, but I've grown accustomed to it.
So you're really well known for the intricate and beautiful patterns that you create on stage with a large cast of dancers. Sometimes it seems like choreographers maybe shy away from that because it can be really overwhelming. So what is it about these big groups that really makes you tick, and what process do you go through in order to plan out all of these patterns and intricate things on stage?
Yeah, well, I guess there were 2 things going on that led me to explore movement that involved large groups. One of them was when I was a student and a young dancer in New York City Ballet. I just noticed that a lot of new ballets being commissioned for the company were by choreographers creating for smaller groups, and I just questioned why that always became the trend during that time, and also I was just really drawn to these epic works especially the ones by George Balanchine, where he's so masterful at using dancers and space, and in works like Symphony in C or Symphony in 3 Movements, Stravinsky Violin Concerto. I think you guys see some of those here too. I just remembered going to see those a lot as a student and as a young professional, and watching from all different angles. I remember seeing a lot of those from like the upper tiers and getting that bird's eye view of the works, and also trying to watch them really close up. So I would like watch one act from up there and then look into the front row and see if there's an empty seat, and then like sneak down for the second act. And it was just nice to get so much perspective on these works, and they're great about allowing the students to come see as many performances as they want. So that was a really important time, I think, in my development, and an important phase for my own inspiration. And so I guess it was partially a backlash to all the new work being made when I was younger, and then also inspiration from George Balanchine and Jerome Robbins and the larger works that they were making. Right.
When you're planning things out, are you in your mind, are you watching it from up high in a balcony, or are you watching it more from the orchestra?
It's definitely like a bird's eye view if I'm working on something very structural and something that involves a large core of dancers. Sometimes I'll do even little sketches or just like really crude like football plays on paper in like a notebook. And it's just to get a sense of how bodies move through space. And I just always felt like it's important to have that kind of starting point before going into the studio with the dancers, because the time is so limited with the dancers that there isn't like a moment to waste. So it's, as long as you have a plan, then departing from that is much easier than coming in and not knowing what you're going to do. So.
Yeah, I remember the first time I ever asked you this question, you said it was like trying to build a house without a foundation. You got to have that first before you start working on the embellishment.
Yeah, it's like when a building is constructed, there's a blueprint to how that building's going to get made. And so similarly with a lot of my work, if it involves large groups, I have that sort of blueprints set in place. I mean, the only difference is my work with making a ballet, there's more flexibility in the moment to depart from that. I think when they're constructing a building, it's sort of set. I don't think they're improvising in the moment.
So let's talk a little bit about your relationship with music as a choreographer. You have a long-standing, fruitful relationship with Sufjan Stevens as a composer, who actually you collaborated with for your first ballet with San Francisco Ballet. But you're very open to a wide variety of musical styles. You've choreographed to Stravinsky and Franck and also Dan Deacon. So how do you pick out what you think is suitable for dance? What inspires you specifically?
It's a very personal thing for me. It's all about what inspires me as a choreographer, and I have. I never feel limited to any sort of genre or style of music, and I also really enjoy the process of collaborating on new music with people like Sufjan Stevens, and so that's always, I tend to switch back and forth between those first-hand collaborations and then working with existing music as well. So the piece tonight is actually kind of a departure for me, because it's the closest thing I've come to choreographing like popular music. So it's by a band named M83, and so it's a little bit of a risk, but I'm excited for this next step. There's been a history of choreographers working with more popular music for the concert stage, and so I think it's feels like an important phase.
Right. We talked to several other choreographers from the festival earlier today, and they said that part of what Helgi was really aiming for in this festival was risk-taking. So did you take that and kind of go with what you want?
I mean, again, it was like a really personal choice for me to use this music. I remember the last time I was here in San Francisco working on In the Countenance of Kings and spending a lot of time wandering around the city and just taking in the light and sort of the beauty and the expanse of the setting, and listening to this particular song cycle, which is titled Hurry Up, We're Dreaming, also the name of the ballet. And it just became this very personal experience for me that was sort of wrapped up in my process here working with San Francisco Ballet. And so I just felt like it would be a great basis for creating a new work with these wonderful artists here.
So did the music come first then for this? Maybe last time you were in San Francisco, you chose this piece of music for this particular festival?
I think I started to think about using this music 2 years ago when I was here, and just envisioning certain dancers in the movement or in the potential movement, and then when I received the second commission, I went back and forth between a few ideas and ultimately landed here because I felt like it would be the most personal for me. But the music, it's interesting because the composer or the band leader wrote this song cycle when he's a French musician, and he moved from France to California, and he was so inspired by the expansiveness of the state and of the nature here, and so that was a big part of this music. And it was also he was very much inspired by how we dream as human beings in different phases of our lives. So the first version of that would be how we dream as children, and then how we dream as coming-of-age adults, and then finally how we dream as fully matured adults. So those various phases are explored through the movement of this piece.
So this piece tonight, you have put your ballet dancers in sneakers, and it's not your first time doing that. So what is it about putting your dancers in sneakers that changes the dynamic of what they're doing, and how does it change your approach to the piece?
I think I first became interested in choreographing in sneakers when I first danced some of these Jerome Robbins sneaker ballets. So there's one piece in particular that I've danced quite a bit called New York Export Opus Jazz, which is an old piece, but we still perform it at New York City Ballet. And there was something very liberating and very different about being on stage dancing in sneakers. It kind of widens your center of gravity, and it allows for greater risk-taking in the moment on stage. And I really liked that feeling as a dancer, and so I wanted to take that and apply it to my own choreographic process. And it's a very American style, I think, too, which I was excited about. And so I've done a few sneaker ballets, and I feel like it's a form that I continue to explore and continue to be interested in, and it's the first kind of sneaker work I've done for this company. So yeah, we'll see.
You've also even put ballets that are not in sneakers into sneakers for promotional videos.
Yeah, that's more of a practical thing. It's hard to dance on point, like
on concrete,
on the sidewalk or something. So yeah.
So now, still very early into your career, you've already made over 30 works. And though some might look at it like, Justin is this young, rising choreographer, you've still experienced immense personal and artistic growth over the course of nearly 10 years. So do you ever look back on those early works and think, God, what was I thinking? Or I want to fix this or that?
Yeah, I definitely feel that way towards the very early works. It's interesting because I tried to restrain myself from changing anything because I felt like, similarly to a painter finishing a painting, and that's the painting, and 10 years later it's still the painting. I wanted to be true to my own creative process at that time. But it's really hard to not change things because it's like a living, breathing experience to see a ballet dance by a company or by certain dancers of today. And so one of those works has been a ballet called You're the Rabbit, which was kind of my first major piece I created for New York City Ballet. And yeah, it's been danced by a couple other companies, and it's being performed by New York City Ballet this spring as well. And it's sort of hard for me to watch now. I don't know.
It's silly because I think it's a perfect ballet. Don't touch it. Do you ever think that you might alter a work for someone's abilities? Like if there were a new dancer that you were putting into Rabbit, would you ever say, she's not like Ashley Bowder, who was the original cast, I want to alter this for her and kind of have options?
Yeah, I mean, I've done that a couple times where we've created like a slightly different variation or solo for a dancer that works better towards their strengths. And that's kind of been a practice that was at least done or maybe started by Balanchine, or he was known for doing that a lot with creating different versions of variations, or a different Chinese variation in Nutcracker for a certain dancer and that sort of thing. So that's sort of my guide with that.
Well, I know that we can't be the only ones with questions for Justin, so is there any hands are going up? How about right here?
Yeah. The question is, are these special dance sneakers, or are we just in plain old sneakers?
They're just plain old sneakers. Keds, you can order them on, Zappos, find them at your local Payless. No, they're very like pedestrian sneakers. And actually what they do is they put a thin layer of suede on the bottom of them so that the dancers can turn, so that they don't get stuck on the Marley. So that's like an important detail.
The question is, this woman in the audience says that she had taps on the end of her toe shoes, and it was something called toe tap. And it's not seen that frequently anymore. Would Justin ever want to incorporate that into one of his ballets?
It's a long career. Maybe one day.
You have had tap in your ballets, so...
I do. Yeah, it's a good idea.
All right here?
Can we talk a little bit about gender roles within ballet and if they're evolving from sort of traditional views?
Yeah, I think they're definitely evolving, especially when you put a piece in sneakers where you get rid of the toe shoes, which kind of differentiates the men from the women, creates a level playing field, and you can experiment quite a bit with that. I did that a lot actually with New York City Ballet. I created a piece in sneakers called The Times Are Racing, and that was actually really fun because I created this solo role for a colleague of mine named Robert Fairchild, and the next season it was performed to a T by a wonderful soloist named Ashley Isaacs. We also had a male-female central duet in that piece that was then performed by a male-male cast, and so that was really exciting to explore, and I think it actually meant a lot to both the dancers and the audience coming to see that piece live, and so I think that's definitely something that a lot of choreographers today are interested in exploring and pushing, and I think actually Miles Thatcher, who is on another program, that was a huge focus for that piece that he worked on. So you'll see quite a bit of that during this festival, I think.
Yeah, Miles' ballet goes tomorrow night, and we are talking to him for the Meet the Artist then.
Right here?
How long did Justin get to work with the company on this upcoming premiere?
So I worked with them for about 5 weeks total for this commission. So I actually came in last August, to do the initial development for the piece. I worked for a little over 3 weeks with them then, and we created the bulk of this work, and then I came back, and I have a wonderful ballet master named Felipe Diaz who takes great care of the choreography, and when I returned it was like super organized and easy to work with, and I was able to just like put the finishing touches on or make a few tweaks and work with the designers on the costumes and the lighting and all that. So
I think we have a question way back here.
Yes. So the question is about what he has in his mind before he goes into the studio. Is it just a blank palette? And he also wants to hear about your Broadway work, Carousel.
Yeah, so to answer your first question, I usually come into the studio with a few thematic movement phrases that I've developed myself on my own body and that I've recorded using video. And I'll work with the dancers on those sequences, and those will act as kind of building blocks to develop an entire work from. So that's kind of how I stay ahead of the game before I get into the studio with the dancers. In regards to in regards to Carousel, I think I worked for probably like 22 weeks on that, which is much longer and a much more extensive process than creating a new ballet. And that involved 6 weeks of dance pre-production, where I worked with maybe 20 dancers in the studio just to explore and develop the language of the show and the storytelling of the show. And then 4 weeks of a lab that involved the entire cast and the principal actors that were involved. And then further rehearsal in the studio, 3 weeks of tech time, and 6 weeks of previews where we continued to tweak the show in front of a live audience. So it's a really thorough process, but and I think very different in a lot of ways from the ballet world, but something I really enjoyed, and I'd be excited to do again someday.
We have time for one more.
Could we talk a little bit about casting? How do you cast a ballet?
Well, this festival was interesting because there's 12 choreographers and a finite number of dancers. So actually what they did quite brilliantly is they split up the company into 3 groups. And amongst those groups, we were able to choose which dancers we wanted to work with, or which dancers we wanted to focus on or put into the leading roles and all that. But it was a necessary step, I think, for us to pull off such an unprecedented festival of new work. And the good thing is that this company is really incredible, and there's so many talented dancers here, and I don't think any of us had any sort of issues with that. Yeah, I mean, I think in general, just like for casting a ballet, everyone has their own taste. For me, I'm always looking for musical dancers, dancers who will bring something to the creative process in the studio, dancers who have a fair amount of athleticism and coordination in their bodies, and just also performance quality on stage. So.
All right, well, thank you, Justin, and thanks to all of you for coming out. Please enjoy this evening.
We hope you enjoy the show. Thank you, guys.
Enjoy,
Thank
guys.
you.
Stay tuned to more from San Francisco Ballet's Unbound Festival. Subscribe now on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. This episode has been sponsored by San Francisco Ballet. We want to take a moment to talk to you about our sponsor, Studio Headphones. Studio wants to revolutionize the way people see headphones, not just as a tech device, but also as an accessory. In the current headphone market, it seems that you can choose between one of two things, tech or style. But Studio is bridging that gap by bringing you high-quality sound that matches the quality of even the highest-rated headphones on the market with a fashionable and modern look for a fraction of the cost. Michael and I have both been loving our sleek tray-style Studio headphones. They are sleek and lightweight and have sound transparency that allows you to hear traffic and conversations around you, making these headphones perfect if you live in a busy city. The Bluetooth technology makes these headphones wonderful to use when you are warming up for class or performances, so you won't get tangled up in wires. So don't wait. Start listening to Conversations on Dance today with Studio headphones. We are happy to be able to offer our listeners 15% off any purchase when you use promo code DANCE at checkout. Go to studio.com, that's SUDIO.com, or click the link in the description of this episode on iTunes. Now, let's get back to it.